Everyone, welcome back to another Arsenal transfer profile along with Adam Rae Voge. Adam, what's up, man?
Not much, man. Just winding down the week, getting excited for the weekend.
There you go. Talk about exciting. Arsenal have been linked. If you can't see the screen, well, I'm hoping you're actually able to see the screen, is Darwin Nunez from Benfica, who the club have been linked to in recent weeks. As always, first, let's start out with a general kind of overview of the player, and then we'll get into some of the nitty gritty.
Yeah, totally. So Darwin Nunez, interesting. I think once you get outside the top five leagues, maybe one of the most adored attacking players out there in terms of like the young, high potential profile. So if it's not Arsenal this summer, he's going to Spain. He's going to Manchester United. He's going somewhere. He's not coming back to Benfica. They turned down some pretty weighty offers for him in January because they were in the Champions League they still are in the Champions League in the knockouts. They beat Ajax and they're moving on to the round of 8. So with Darwin, I mean, what can I tell you about him? He's 22. He was born in Uruguay and he made the move over to Portugal. I think it was in 2019. They immediately loaned him out to the Spanish Segunda League where he played for Almeria. I think he bagged 16 goals in that season. So it's pretty impressive stuff from a kid who at that time was still only 20. Made his full transition into the senior team last season and bumped into Arsenal in the Europa League. I think that most people were relatively unimpressed with his performance there. But I can be honest with you too. I've been tracking him for a year and a half, and after last season was not super high on him. I thought he had a lot of issues handling the ball, particularly just a ton of turnovers. And although he had good goal output, just looked kind of clumsy. This season, it's more of the same, but improved. He's a little gaty, like his run is a little awkward. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a puppy growing into his body, but he's 6'2". He plays a very dynamic brand of football. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Gabriel Martinelli in terms of just like the motor. And he has made, I mean, he has come up really big for his club in a few different situations this season. Most recently, a game that Benfica had absolutely no business winning in the Netherlands against Ajax, just a killer header. I think it was like 80 plus minutes into the game that sealed the deal and Benfica moved on. Other than that, I mean, we can just talk some stats on him, but he's a really interesting, really exciting player, and he's going somewhere, whether it's Arsenal or somewhere else.
Yeah, before the stats, when I watch him play on film, the first thing that does stick out about him, like I think that really makes him a good fit for Arsenal. He has what we say in America. He has that dog in him, right? Like he's a grinder. He's a Odegaard. Maybe no one is really to that extent on the team as Odegaard is in terms of just like, running 12 kilometers a match, right? But he would fit in very, very well in terms of that mental profile, and especially with what Mikel wants from his press, what he wants in terms of work rate. He puts in a ton of sprints per game, and he's willingly do it. He almost has like he does it for fun, and so I think that's a great thing. The one thing I'm not sure of, I haven't seen enough tape on it, is again how he is with his back to the goal, and can he initiate that link up play. I haven't seen Benfica enough to comment on that. I don't know, maybe you can fill in that gap.
Yeah, I would say that day one, he is not going to come in and be somebody that fills that role extremely well. I don't feel filled with a lot of confidence in his ability to hold the ball up. The thing that reassures me a little bit is that he's a strong guy. I think with training, he can be a good hold up player. He is once he's on the ball, he's not easy to get the ball away from. This season, his control of the ball has improved so dramatically. And that's significant for me because you can see from the radar, he is a volume dribbler. He's a guy who will try to take on defenders and not losing the ball very much in that sense for me is really encouraging. So I do think that the hold up play will need some work. And I think the other thing is he's got it's kind of a weird vibe with him in terms of his passing and creation, because he has the ability to make some really good plays in terms of passing, set up some really good opportunities, but the consistency isn't there. He's going to need to work on that. Unless his role is just going to be to come in and get on the end of stuff, which he's doing incredibly well this season. But I think we've seen Lacazette do the complete opposite. So in some, I guess maybe that's a good way to put it. In some ways, he will give Arsenal the anti-Lacazette, in the sense that I think the hold up, the link up, not so strong, but the charges into the box, he does that well, and he finishes well. He's ahead of his XG for sure. I mean, but I don't think it's at an unsustainable level, at least not from what I've seen, because he shoots a lot and his shots are good and they're on target. So he, it would be an interesting move. It would be a little bit of a shock to the system, I think, to go from Lacazette to him at center forward.
Yeah, I think when it comes to hold up play for what Mikel wants, I think he's strong enough. He's certainly strong, so he has the raw materials. The question is, I don't think Mikel's looking for someone who he wants to sit on the ball and hold up play, right? He wants them to get in that position and then get that ball out quickly and then run in behind, right? And I think that's why he really was targeting Vlahovic as well, who's able to do that to an extent. Use his strength to get into a position, lay that ball off, and then go. I think Nunez could certainly develop that ability and be molded into that. Whereas right now, like you said, he is that player who kind of is the anti-Lacazette without that hold-up play. But I do believe the raw materials are there, and I think he certainly has the mentality to want to get better, which we always touch on. I think with Arsenal, they're always looking into these guys' profiles off the pitch. The big reason they went in for Ramsdale, for example, and Odegaard, for example, and Ben White, for example, even Tavares. I mean, all these guys, they do their homework on them. So I trust them when it comes to understanding how a player wants to get better, or in many cases, not get better. That's why some of these guys got shipped out anyways. And so moving on to the actual data. All right. So this is from the actual league play, right? And then we have European competition. So let's start with here, and then we'll jump over to Europe.
Yeah, so I mean, in league play, there's very little ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's been one of the best players in the Premier Liga in Portugal, leading the league in goals. Obviously being at the very edge of that part of the radar. His shots, the volume itself is not necessarily crazy high. It's definitely above average, but it's encouraging to see that the shots on target jolts upward from the number of shots. So not disproportionate, but you know what I mean? Like a very good portion of shots being on the target. I lose some of my ability with some of these smaller outside the top 5 leagues that aren't on FBref to get, like expected assists. So his assists, this is kind of like an average-ish forward output. I have seen other people do raters on him where his XA was pretty high. So that's encouraging. And the key passes being higher might be a signal of that as well. And that kind of plays into what I said, where I think he's got this ability to make the right pass some of the time, make a good pass, a quite good pass some of the time, and then kind of frustrate you other times as well. Maybe that is coming through here in the pass success rate being below 70%. It's not the most encouraging number, and it's something that you'd want him to work on for sure. But again, I mean, being one of the most prolific dribblers in his league at a high success rate with going back a year, this section of the chart was similar in the sense that the dribbles and the dribble success was high, but the dispossessions and the bad controls were sucked in toward the middle of the axis, which is bad. The area, I mean, in terms of in the air, I think that's something that we end up talking about a lot with potential striker options. Everybody's kind of got their own take. We don't actually, as a club, attempt many crosses. For all the talk about how we need somebody to get on the end of the Tierney cross, we actually don't attempt very many. But Whether that would change with a better presence in the box, though, is something to at least wonder about. But anyway, on Darwin, you see he doesn't win a lot of aerials. Doesn't really have many chances. It's at least somewhat good that the percentage is higher than the actual volume itself. But again, this is a guy who is spending time in 2-man fronts. He's spending time out wide on the left. So, some of those chances to get into a lot of aerial battles just may not be there. When I watched him against Benfica, for Benfica against Ajax in the second leg, he kind of started off maybe a little bit more to the left, and then toward the end of the game, he set up more centrally. When I ranked strikers outside of the top leagues, he was my number 2, behind only Sebastian Aller, who was just ripping up the Champions League this season. So. I did also include his career in European play. He's got 2 seasons, 2 campaigns, one in Europa last season where Benfica met their end, the feisty Mikel's tricky Reds. Mm-hmm. And then this season where they're now into the round of 8, you can see the NPXG per shot. This is a good, this is a small sample size. 871 minutes is right around where I would take off the small sample size warning label normally. Usually that's 900 to 1,000, somewhere around there for me. But in Europe, he's dribbled a lot. He's dribbled with a high level of success, but encouraging overall, I would say, just given that his chances are high, the quality of his chances, and then again, like I kind of hearken to back on the other radar, that XA per 90 being high tells me that he's setting up some quality chances for his teammates as well. So he's a player who really excites me. And as I've gotten more and more deep down this striker rabbit hole, I think that maybe in terms of just ceiling, he's among the top out there. I think that the discussion with him is going to be that Benfica are not a club who are going to say 30 million pounds, like we can't turn that down. I think they were asking for 50 or so from West Ham when they tried to steal him in January. And I've seen reports that it's going to be more than that in the summer. So there's going to be some pricing pressure on him. There's going to be some pressure on him to perform early, which may or may not be good depending on what kind of guy he is when he comes in. But again, more costly than some of the other options, I think.
Yeah, agreed. But I think for a reason, I think what really is exciting about him is going back to the league number is how much he's developed that ball security this season, which is critical. And we've seen that jump as well. And then going over to European league is that what you don't see as much in the normal league, or you don't have the numbers, is that XA per 90. So he does have that potential ability, to link play and distribute the ball somewhat as well. In both leagues, we see his dribble, he's quite good with his dribbling. And again, that speaks to what we've talked about with versatility that, Arteta often wants. So he is a player who could drift out wide and interchange and be able to still attack in that regard. And the aerial number, again, as you talked about, I know fans love to focus on Arsenal's lack of ability in the air, but again, that's not really even their emphasis, right? It's much more so getting that ball fluidly into that final third, and then finding that pullback pass more often than not than it is anything going into the air. And so, although, like you said, the question is always, is that something where we don't do it because they don't have it, right? Or is that the actual game plan? And that's kind of the interesting dynamic there. All right, so now just give me kind of your closing thoughts on Nunez in terms of his overall fit with the club. And then, what do you think are the odds that he moves? And honestly, what you just touched on is I'm going to put you in a hard spot. What do you think he goes for in the summer?
Yeah, I think he goes for about 65 million pounds. That's my guess. I think at the end of the summer, there will be some big moves. Obviously, Haaland will move, and that'll be for about the same, actually, 65 million until you get into wages and bonuses and such. So I think it's going to be right around there. I think that Arsenal are going to be one of the better positioned clubs for him because there have been whispers about him to Spain. But if you kind of look at the situation there, you've got Real Madrid who are going to back up the Brinks truck for Haaland and Mbappe. So I don't know, Mbappe being more of a left-sided guy, whether they would want to bring Nunez in at that point. Yeah. Barcelona is going to be an interesting one, right? Because they do still have Aubameyang, but what are they going to do with Traore, and what are they going to do with Dembele and everybody else? It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of weight they have to throw around. I mean, do they have money? Atletico Madrid is kind of the other one, and they're being linked to everybody who plays in Italy. Paulo Dybala and Lautaro Martinez both heavily linked to them right now. So once you get outside of that, you kind of come down to, would Arsenal get him or would Manchester United get him? Because they're another club who has been linked. I think that in terms of his fit, again, in some ways, he's going to be the anti-Lacazette with Arsenal if he came in. So I kind of look at this summer and the forward move. This is Arteta's first real time bringing in a forward, and I think we're going to learn what he actually wants to do. Because I feel like we all do kind of a lot of projecting based on either our own preferences or our feelings about Lacazette and if it's effective. So some people think it's going to be more of a false nine, and some people think it's going to be more of a target man who's, a big target in the box who can put a head on a cross like a Calvert-Lewin. So I can see Darwin struggling, turning over some passes, all that kind of thing, but I can see him growing into it as the season goes on. He's a competitive guy. He plays with a lot of fire. I do think that the drive is going to be high there. I do think he's going to want Champions League. So if we miss out on the Champions League, I think that might make him a non-starter. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's something very satisfying to me about thinking about Odegaard playing a through ball to Darwin Nunez. I think he would be a good guy to have on the end of it, and I think he'd be a good guy to have on the end of a long Aaron Ramsdale goal kick too. So I personally would like it. I wouldn't guarantee anyone that he would come in and never do anything wrong, but to me it feels good. And he's used to wearing Fly Emirates on the shirt, so there's a natural move. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the fit is there, certainly, just in terms of what the club was looking for. Well, I think they're looking for. I think the only real data point we have on that is Vlahovic. I think he's the only guy we kind of know with pretty good certainty that the team was in for. Isaac, I think, was a lot of projection, especially when it comes to checking his license plates, while in London and all that. People were more excited. And so I think they're probably high on him, but we don't know. With Vlahovic, we know they were in on him. And so that kind of, I think, to me, gives you a profile of kind of what they're looking for in that regard. And I think Nunez offers some of those same abilities. He's a pest. He works his tail off. He plays with a certain sense of confidence. And the fact that he got that massive header, like you said, at Ajax shows that maybe he is built for some of those moments. So he'll certainly want Champions League, especially after now going to the round of 8 with Benfica. I don't see him in any way, shape, or form taking a step back in terms of what competition he's playing in. And then lastly, to your point, I think in terms of, it's always about not just, what you're going to bid, but what other clubs are going to be bidding as well. And I think you laid it out perfectly in terms of a lot of the other prominent clubs are probably looking elsewhere, or he'll be overlapping with what they already have. So I think it sets up, quite nicely here for Arsenal and, their foray into next season and what should be a really, really big summer for them to add not just high-level players, but then add depth. Like Mikel said, they're trying to build towards challenging for every trophy every season. And, that every window now is going to be really, really important. And so we'll see where they go. But like yourself, I think Nunez would fit quite well in all aspects of what we've seen that Mikel wants. All right, so that does it for this episode. Adam, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, find me on Twitter at Adam Voge, Voge. Happy to take questions. Hit that follow button. Love to interact with followers. So,
yeah, definitely make sure to follow him. Read all his in-depth thoughts there, and he puts up all these radars there as well. They're not proprietary to this channel. And then for myself, as always, you can find me at 3CB Performance, 3 Charlie Beta Performance. We'll see y'all next time.